Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is the classic Grand Theft Auto 4. I've made a couple of videos on it in the past regarding its performance issues and optimization, testing it with a few flagship graphics cards from different generations. This on the other hand is Minecraft, a heavily modded version running with path tracing to enhance the lighting effects. Why is this relevant? Well, since making this video and seeing the positive response, I wanted to take the opportunity to continue a little mini-series, one where we take old games, enhance their visuals as much as possible, and see whether or not they can run on budget graphics cards, and if so, how well they perform. I chose GTA 4 today because it's always been popular among modders, and has the potential to look really good. Not to mention, it's still a must-play title in my book, thanks to the gripping story and fantastic open world. So let's see what we can do here. First of all, let's check out how it looks at 1080p with the highest settings. This is version 1.0.8 from Steam, running on a i5-8400, 16GB of RAM and a GTX 1070. This config has no trouble maintaining at least 60 FPS nearly all of the time. I can't help but notice things look a little muddy by today's standards though. Don't get me wrong, it's how Rockstar intended it, I'm sure, and the dull tones certainly match the game's mood, but for the fun of it, let's see what we can do. First thing I did was search Gta4 Photorealism Mod, and I quickly came across this simple ENB here, which, as described, seems to enhance the visuals by giving the game a more natural look. I don't like all that wet ground stuff or overdone bloom that seems to plague many ENB modifications. This on the other hand seems subtle yet still noticeable. Before installing it though, I had to downgrade GTA 4 to version 1.0.4.0. This is super easy to do using this handy Steam guide. It takes less than 5 minutes, seriously. The reason for this is because version 1.0.4 offers the best mod support, but also has the best visuals to start with according to various forums. Installing the graphical mod is as simple as pasting the files into the game's directory, replacing everything. Make a backup first though. I also pasted this road textures mod into the directory too, which should make the streets look a little better. So, here is how things look now, and as you can see the performance has suffered quite a bit, but we're still maintaining at least 30 frames per second most of the time. The video compression really doesn't do it justice, and although things look better, there is still a lack of anti-aliasing that leaves the game looking a little rough around the edges, quite literally. To combat this, I forced DSR from the Nvidia control panel and ran the game at 4K on my 1080p display. While this did fix the jaggers, you may also be surprised to know it didn't affect the frame rate all that much, which is certainly worth noting. But what about our less capable friends? Today we're seeing how the 1.2GB GTX 570, the 2GB R9 380, the 2GB GTX 1050 and the 1GB HD 5750 handle a so-called photorealistic GTA 4. Who says you can't run high detail mods on entry-level GPUs? The target is 30 frames per second here. If a card can do that, then it gets a shot at 4K. If it can't, it gets dropped to 720p. First up, it's the GTX 1050, a fantastic little budget beast. Somehow at 1080p max settings, this card outperformed the GTX 1070. I might know why. GTA 4 has always been more CPU reliant, and it seems to love the 6-core i5-8400. Furthermore, the 1.4 version of the game I'm using here doesn't detect more than 3 gigs of VRAM, and I have a feeling it's ignoring a lot of the card's other potential too. But who cares, because the 1050 is doing very well, bumping things up to 3840 by 2160 under DSR, and as expected we do drop below that 30 FPS mark by quite a bit. And here, the 1050 and 1070 are once again in different leagues. Now the game performs like this regardless of graphical settings. A great effort nonetheless. While we've still got the Nvidia drivers installed, let's try the 1.2GB GTX 570, an aging Fermi card with discontinued support. Despite this, which is kind of irrelevant due to the last drivers releasing after the last GTA 4 update, it did maintain a 30 FPS average, but in some instances there were some heavy frame drops, meaning that an attempt at 4K was out of the question. 720p it was then. Here the card came into its own, averaging near 50 FPS. Not a bad effort. The card started getting a little loud, but it was nothing serious. The neighbours didn't come round, put it that way. And yes, that has happened before when a noisy GPU got me accused of disturbing the peace, as they thought I was running the vacuum cleaner at 11 PM. Moving on to the AMD cards, and the R9 380, the 2GB variant, performed very well too. But here's the thing. About 10 minutes in, and after averaging around 32 FPS, the card started displaying a few artifacts on screen. Not a good sign at all. There was also an immediate slowdown, and this put any hopes of running the game at 4K out of my mind. Instead, I turned things down to 720p and experienced no issues. I've rigorously tested the R9 380 over the last couple of days and have seen no evidence of issues anywhere else, so for it to start playing up here was quite odd. I went back to another couple of games after GTA 4 and again nothing strange occurred. That being said, the card handled modded GTA 4 wonderfully at 720p with maximum settings. Last but not least, it was the turn of the 1GB HD 5750. It tried its best, you've got to admit, but Full HD just wasn't happening here with an average frame rate of about 15. Even a drop to 720p wasn't enough to make the game playable here, but it still looked great nonetheless. All except this card handles this realism mod quite well, which just goes to show that you don't need an expensive GPU to make one of the best games out there look its best as well. Unless you want 60 frames per second, that's when you'll need some serious power. There we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has certainly been something different, but as I said before, I wanted to continue that little mini series where we made Minecraft look its absolute best, and I thought GTA 4 just deserved a little bit of a remaster as well. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like on it. Leave a dislike if you didn't. All the links to the mods and how to downgrade the game will be in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.